Good morning, YouTube. I hope you're feeling well rested after a good weekend. Today's video, I want to share with you the first installment of a new series, which will be a follow along of my bro split workout. And today's the first day, and it will be back and forearms and hamstrings. I'm going to show you how I would set it up, all the exercises I do, and I'm going to throw in a few little tips for you, which I hope you can learn from. Anyway, enjoy the video and I'll speak to you soon. Okay, so kicking things off, first of all, we've got a dumbbell pullover, just a standard dumbbell used working for a stretch. And I'm using 25 kilos here to warm up with. I'm going for about 10 to 12 reps. Can't remember whether I got 10 or 12, but you'll see when I put the weights, sets, and reps on the screen on every exercise, which you should be seeing right now. So yeah, just working for a stretch and a nice contraction at the top. I've chosen this exercise over a machine pullover, even though my gym does have one. We're lucky enough to have one. Just because I'm actually working on getting a really, really strong stretch at the bottom, as opposed to getting that lat contraction. That's just because I'll put a little bit more pressure on the serratus muscles and the abs. This is actually a really good ab exercise as well as a lat exercise, and definitely one you should add into your routine. You're going to be seeing this one quite a lot as I'm trying to work on my lower lats at the moment, and this is going to be my daily exercise to keep stimulating the lats. So as you can see, I'm using 30 kilos here, gone up in weight a little bit, starting to struggle, but we're not at the top set yet, which you'll see very soon. So yeah, once it starts to get a bit harder, just try and sit into that stretch quite a bit, and just try and focus on driving the weight forward. The only issue with this exercise is as your weights start to go up and up, the dumbbells get bigger and bigger. And as you can see, at one point here, I do smack myself in the head. So not ideal, but if your gym has heavier dumbbells, you might not have that issue. One thing to note with this is try not to cross your thumbs over the middle of the bar, as this means you'll end up with one hand that's higher than the other, and therefore one lat that's contracting more than the other. And also try and keep those elbows pointed to the sky. You're going to get a little bit of long head of the tricep activation there, and you're going to get a really good stretch on the lat. But overall, the dumbbell pullover is a really great warm-up exercise. And as you can see, the next exercise is going to be Romanian deadlifts. And the pullover really helps with trying to cue pulling the bar into your shins. As you can see here, I'm going down, I'm focusing on a stretch on the hamstrings, but I'm also pulling in all the time with my lats to try and get that contraction. Using 60 kilos here to warm up with. But yeah, this is a big focus of mine. These are going to be a mainstay in my routine for now because I have bad hamstrings. They're a weak point of mine. And also I have bad hamstring mobility. So I'm swapping out regular deadlifts for Romanian deadlifts to try and increase my hamstring size and flexibility so I can actually finally do barbell rows, because the limiting factor in barbell rows for me is actually hamstring mobility. Moved up to 100 kilos here. As I said before, just trying to focus on that good stretch and a good contraction at the top and pulling in with the lats, try and keep contact with my legs at all times. Just keeping good range of motion, trying to pause slightly at the bottom. Different angle here, but moved up to 3 plates now, 140 kilos, and the belt's finally gone on and the straps. So I try to keep beltless for as long as possible so that I can maximize strain on my lower and mid back. But once you get above 3 plates, I think it's a good idea to swap to having a belt on. I only use straps on my top set so I can get a bit of forearm activation there as well. Okay, finishing off the hamstring portion of the workout, I've gone to the new hoist rocket row, which has been added to my gym. This is a really good exercise, really good seated curl, as it kind of rocks you back and forth and tilts you into the perfect leverage for the hamstrings. It feels really good, and if you have access to any hoist equipment at your gym, you should give it a go. I mean, some of the equipment isn't that good, like the lat pull down, but as you can see, just different angle here. It rocks you back and forth, which really helps with that contraction and really helps to put you in the best position to where you can't really cheat the reps. It's a very hard exercise. I can't really tell you the weights here as it's just numbers on the machine. That's the one downside. Well, that's because it uses your body weight as leverage as well. Um, but yeah, it's a really good machine. Also, a good machine for people with short legs because you can always find the perfect pivot point as your upper thighs aren't locked into the machine. It's just the lower leg. It's also a bit easier on the knees than a regular seated leg curl. I find that my knees kind of want to explode on a regular seated leg curl, but I get quite a bit of a pain in the groin, if you can imagine what I mean by that, when I do lying leg curls. So I don't like those. Here, you might wonder, why am I adding dips in on a back day? Well, the reason why is because I want to kind of try and warm up the shoulder girdle before I move into my pulling exercises. This is something you should really try and do because obviously, when your arms move, they're moving through a plane of motion on the shoulder. So you should try and really get that area of the shoulder warmed up nicely, and dips are a perfect exercise for that. You can see now I'm moving into what I call banana style dips. This is a really good way of increasing load on the actual muscle without increasing any weight on the spine. So obviously, spinal loading is axial loading is quite a big concern on back day because of the heavy deadlifts and everything. But if you just try and focus on keeping your feet up front and pointing your toes out, then banana style dips are a very good exercise. Here we can see I've moved into just regular wide grip pull-ups. I'm just doing these in a regular style, trying to get a good contraction at the top, trying to get that chin over the bar, and just trying to pull. I think I get 10 reps here, but pull-ups were never my best exercise. I do weigh about 190 pounds right now, so quite a bit heavier than usual. Going into wide grip pull-ups again for another set. Try to get 2 sets on these. As you can see, one of my biggest pointers for back training is try and hit the muscle from every different angle. You know, adduction of the lats is a main function, so you should try and have a vertical pull from 2 different planes of motion. One pulling from the front, one pulling from the side. I actually have 2 because I have the pullovers. You can see here I've moved into my power exercise here. I've got 20 kilos hanging from my waist, and I've moved to a neutral grip and then a reverse grip for the pulls. I don't get many reps here, but I'm going to try and just work on pulling. Okay, so the next exercise is going to be a high row. I'm doing this on a machine because obviously I've already had quite a bit of lower back loading from the deadlifts, and my job's quite physical. I'm always loading the lower back when I do my job. So axial loading is a massive concern for me just because of my work. If I load the lower back too much, then I won't be able to work and have a lot of lower back pain and fatigue. I'm using 70 kilos here, 77 kilos to warm up with, and just focusing on that good mid back contraction with an overhand grip. Um, you'll see in my next set, I move to a neutral grip, a neutral wide grip, and I've upped the weight to 84 kilos. I'm doing these in place of barbell rows, as I said, because of the lower back concern. But this is a really good exercise for just focusing on that mid back contraction. I'm not a science based guy, but I do like to add in some machine exercises when they are needed. Of course, free weight should be the foundation of what you're doing. I've moved up here to 91 kilos. So obviously, if you were doing a 91 kilo barbell row, it'd be quite a bit harder than this. But this machine is really good for getting that focus on the mid back if you struggle to contract it, which I do, and it's a concern of mine. I've moved my grip up a bit because the handles were kind of sliding out. Okay, so the next exercise here is a DY hammer strength row. This is a really good lower lat exercise. You do it with both hands at the same time. This prevents sort of twisting to try and help and prevents you from using too much trap. I really like it to cue driving the elbows back and down. I really feel it in my lower back. This is a really good heavy exercise. I'm using 2 plates here for a warm up. And as you can see, it's still quite heavy. So I've moved up to 3 plates here on the DY row, and I'm looking for about 6 to 8 reps. I think I get 6. It's good to use a little bit of cheating form on this exercise. You want to get a peak contraction, and although I try and keep my form quite strict on back day, having a little bit of a cheat on some exercises can be really good for trying to focus on that contraction. So this exercise is all about trying to hit those fibers that I might have missed in the rest of the workout. I'm not using much weight. I'm using 30 kilos per arm here on a dual cable stack. Um, this is such a good exercise for feeling that contraction in the lat. And it's not for trying to progress on this exercise. It's just about trying to train my brain to feel the lower lats all the way down the muscle into the insertion. You will feel this exercise so strongly if you try it. And if you struggle with lats, then this might be a really good one to add in as a finisher. So here I'm kind of increasing the load by increasing the fatigue on the muscle by doing one arm at a time. The weight's still the exact same, but the exercise is going to be harder because I'm using one hand at a time. The other benefit of this exercise is because you're constantly holding with the other hand, you're not only training your grip at the same time, but you're also preventing your back from twisting too much. And, with single arm exercises, this can be an issue for lower back pain and also can be an issue for trying to hit the target muscle. If you're putting too much twist in, you're using your hips a lot. So this one is a favorite exercise of mine. Upright rows kind of really hurt my wrists. I struggle with ganglion cysts from benching a lot. And also my work, I'm constantly using my wrists. I get a lot of grip fatigue just from working. So although, cable optimal exercises are a little bit of a joke right now, this one is one of the few that I've kind of found out for myself that is a really good addition. Upright rows just kind of don't work for me because if I go heavy enough, then the weight is just really difficult. The issue is with the cable stack, when you're doing this exercise, you can kind of max out the height of the stack. So I like to put my knees on the bench. If you're a taller guy, this is what you'll need to do. Um, use your knees as a halfway point. I'm using 17 kilos per arm here, so it's actually quite a heavy exercise, and you can really go to failure on that. I'm moving to hammer pinwheel curls here, trying to hit the brachioradialis of the forearm as I move into the forearm section here of the workout. I'm using 17.5 kilos to warm up with. It's quite a light weight for me for bicep exercises, but since I didn't put a focus on my forearms for quite a while because of my job, my forearms are kind of actually one of the weaker muscles in my body. So I'm actually weaker on hammer curls than I am for regular curls. My biceps are quite a bit stronger than when I do hammer curls. So just focusing here on keeping the contraction on the brachioradialis, which is kind of the meat part in between your elbow joint. You'll see it contracting here. I move up to 20 kilos here per arm, and just again focusing on that contraction. Again, I'm doing one arm at a time this time, just to try and increase the fatigue on the muscle and the focus on the single muscle at once rather than doing them alternating. This is a really, really good way to increase fatigue without increasing weight. Um, and this is such an excellent exercise for the forearm. Um, I don't really need to work too much forearm flexion, just kind of the upper part of the forearm. Flexion part I get from my job quite a lot, so I'm not doing any wrist curls here. As you can see, I've moved towards just going for a kind of forward plane of motion. This is to try and get a little bit more bicep involvement, just as I get more fatigued. Still using 20 kilos here, but trying to hit the muscle from every kind of angle possible is a big focus of mine. And part of the large focus on that is because with a bro split, atrophy is a real concern. You know, when you're not using a muscle in a certain kind of way, um, when you're, say, only doing frontal plane exercises, you're not doing any adduction exercises for your lats or anything. As much as people say, oh, just neutral grip pulls work the entirety of the lat, they really don't. You need to try and hit the muscle from every angle, especially on a bro split, because of the once a week frequency. You're worried about atrophy of those muscles, so you need to hit that 3 set minimum for each type of fiber. So here I'm doing reverse curls just to hit the forearm from another angle. You want to kind of try and do these quite strict. That's why I'm only using 20 kilos on the bar. 20 kilos is plenty if you're doing these with a strict form. They are a hard exercise. They are a very hard exercise, especially on the thumbs. Just trying to hold the weight with the thumbs is quite difficult. So as you can see here, I'm showing the exercise from the side as well, doing another set. And just showing, you need to kind of keep the elbows in line with the torso. Kind of see my triceps are popping here, my delts. It's a good angle there, just to say so. Yeah. But this is such a good exercise for the forearms. You don't really see it done much anymore. Kind of see a lot of people opting for cable versions or just skipping forearms entirely. But I think the forearms really complete the physique. This is something that I needed to talk about as well. When you're doing back day, before every kind of exercise, you should try and stretch your neck. Um, your neck kind of can pull on all of the rest of the muscles and create imbalances. Just a little bit of a physique check at the end here. Um, looking very Jason Genova-esque, quite soft, fully bulked up right now, but abs are still kind of showing. Um, Still popping a vacuum here. Not a very good one, mind you, but you can still see the outline of the six pack and everything. So try not to get your body fat too high, although mine is quite high right now for me. But just showing off, the lats are looking wide, looking thick. Yeah, physique's kind of improved. The transformation I put on was actually a few months ago, so I like to think my physique's improved a little bit since then. I've added a little bit of mass onto my lats, and I've also improved my abs slightly. Just kind of showing off every angle here. As you can tell, I'm not the best poser in the world. That's something I really need to work on, especially posing my biceps. Okay, so just wanted to wrap things up here a little bit. That's my first time doing a voiceover recording on a video and trying to do a little bit better editing for you guys. But yeah, I think it kind of went well. I was feeling a little bit rushed at some points there. But yeah, just kind of wanted to go through some of the tips that I mentioned throughout the video, and kind of clarify what I meant there because I was kind of rambling a little bit. So the first kind of pointer is I touched on atrophy in a bro split, um, and that's kind of a real problem, especially with a lot of the sort of optimal crew and science-based lifters that are going around nowadays. Um, you know, Also some previous older guys, but there's kind of a pervasive idea around here that the certain exercises can both hit the whole of a muscle and also target a muscle, which I think there's a bit of a disconnect there between these people and understanding of human physiology. If you understand sort of human physiology, a muscle doesn't really work like that. You can't sort of half activate a muscle fiber. If you think about it, a muscle is made up of a lot of muscle fibers, right? So say your lat, it's like a fan of a lot of muscle fibers. Each muscle fiber, individual fiber, can only be sort of on or off, right? They can only sort of contract or relax. They can't half activate. So if you are hitting the whole of a muscle, that means there are fibers that aren't getting hit, say you're doing something like a barbell row. There's an idea that the barbell row hits the entirety of the back, and that's just not true. It might hit some of the fibers from the mid-back, some of the fibers from the lats, but it's not going to maximally contract. Well, it's not going to hit all of the fibers from one area. So if you're doing an overhand row, right, you're going to be hitting a lot, nearly all of the fibers in the mid-back, but you're not going to be hitting nearly any of the fibers in the lower lats, right? Whereas if you're doing an underhand barbell row or an underhand cable row or something, you're going to be hitting a lot of the lower lats, right? A lot of the lower lats, okay? But you're not going to be hitting nearly any of the upper traps. You're not going to be hitting nearly any of the mid-back, really. And it's the same for adduction of the lats, right? So if you're going wide grip, the old saying with old-timey bodybuilders was, wide grip for wide lats. And that's kind of true. So adduction of the lats or adduction is where you pull the arm to the side, right? And that is going to hit that kind of upper lat area when you pull like that, which is very different to pulling from the front, which is going to hit more of the lower lats again. So say you have a bro split setup where you're trying to do minimalist workouts, right? So you're only doing a neutral grip pull down, right? And a barbell row. Then you're going to be missing out. You're going to be missing out a lot. And if these fibers, right, from adduction and the fibers from, say, a lower lat row aren't getting hit at all, right, because you're only having a minimalist routine, and you're doing a bro split, right, then the other fibers can atrophy and will, even though you're training your back. You think you're hitting the whole of the back. Well, you're not. So that's one of the focuses that should be on a bro split. Your volume should be going higher because you should be trying to kind of split up the muscle into movements. This is going to be a main focus that you're going to see from how I set up a bro split. I'm also going to be moving exercises around and adding ones in to try and add in extra volume for different muscles to kind of keep the stimulation going on those fibers and prevent atrophy. You saw that through me hitting dips, and me hitting pullovers in this exercise. I'm getting a little bit of long head of the tricep activation. I'm getting a little bit of lateral head. I'm getting a little bit of lower chest as well, and I'm trying to hit all of those. I threw in the underhand grip pull downs, and I threw in the both pinwheel curls and front grip hammer curls because I'm trying to hit the bicep as well, and I'm trying to hit all angles of the forearms. You know, this is what you should be thinking about. If you're attempting a bro split or any kind of split, you should be trying to hit every single fiber possible, because you're not going to be getting any kind of external stimulus because you're not on steroids, or I hope you're not. If you are a natural, you need to be hitting every fiber possible to try and get maximal growth, or else you aren't milking it out as much as you can. What was the other point I wanted to make? Oh yeah, trying to warm up, you know. This is what I mentioned, is I sort of mentioned something about neck stretching. So that's an important point. I've had a imbalance in my shoulders, in my chest, and in my lats for a long time. And I never understood why. If you look at my physique, one pec, one shoulder, one lat are kind of all smaller than the other. And I kind of figured out it's how I sleep. So if you're sleeping on your side on a pillow all the time, and you have a favourite side, so your pillow's on your left side of your head, it's moving your head sideways, and it's kind of shortening these neck muscles and lengthening these ones, which means you can end up with one side of your neck that's tighter than the other. This is something I heard from Lyle McDonald. You should check him out, by the way. Him and Solomon Nelson make great content, as well as George Hackenschmidt. He wrote it in his book, The Way to Live, that neck stretching is so important. And I didn't understand at the time. I didn't really put any weight into it when I read it. But after I kind of figured it out myself, I looked at myself and I was thinking, why when I film pull-ups is one lat kind of wonky? And why when I'm pressing is that right shoulder always hurting? I always thought it was a shoulder injury from boxing, and it partially is, but try and sort of stretch your neck like this, all angles, and put your fingers on the fibers so you can feel it before every pull and before every push. You should be stretching your neck every day, before you work out, before every exercise. Just kind of stretch it while you're resting, because you sleep every day, and if you have a favourite position to sleep in, your neck is going to be stretched or contracted one way. So neck stretching is so important. You need to be stretching it all the time out. Even if you kind of put your hand on your chest and just stretch your neck back, you're going to feel that part of your neck pulling your chest up, right? Same there. If you put your neck forward, you can feel your neck muscles pulling on the traps all the way around, and you might find you have a tighter side, and that is going to affect everything, absolutely everything in the chain of your body. So if there's one tip you can get from this video, stretch your neck. And yeah, I think that's kind of everything I wanted to go through. I hope you enjoyed the workout, and as I've gone through, I will have put all of the sets and reps both in the description and on the screen. So thank you. I hope you've learned something, and I hope you have a great day and the rest of your week.